The rest of us, they insist, should be grateful for merely being allowed to visit. How small they are, how weak, how unoriginal.
The mayor of New York City on the 4th of July sitting at George Washington's desk delivering a speech about how weak and small the people who built America are. Let me say that one more time so it fully lands. Zoran Mamdani, the man who flew to America from Uganda on an airplane, who went to Yale, who now runs the most powerful city in the Western world, sat at the desk of the man who crossed the Delaware in a blizzard and used that desk to lecture us about the powerful. He is the powerful. He is sitting at the desk. He just does not seem to notice. Stay to the end because we are going to get to the part where this same mayor went on television and publicly mourned a Hamas sniper and then defended it. That is where we are going. This one is wild.
Good morning, my fellow Americans. Season after season, year after year, the tides have come in and out of New York Harbor. Long before the name New York had ever been spoken, Lenape dugouts crossed these currents. It was on these waters that tall masts crested the horizon, captained by explorers like Verrazano and Hudson, after whom we've named our bridges and rivers. And ever since, ships full of travelers weary from long journeys have passed through the Narrows, the winds of the Atlantic at their backs. When those passengers lifted their heads to glimpse what lies just beyond the waves, what did they see? They saw land, lush and teeming with life. They saw men waiting at the docks to take them into bondage.
So we are 3 sentences into the 4th of July speech, and we have already arrived at slavery. That is a record. Most people get through at least one full paragraph before pivoting to the darkest chapter in American history. Not Mamdani. He sees the harbor, he sees the Statue of Liberty, and his immediate instinct is bondage. To be fair, he is technically correct that terrible things happened in American history. That is true. That is also what every 4th of July speech from a progressive politician sounds like now. It is less a celebration and more a PowerPoint presentation on why you should feel bad about your hot dog.
Here at City Hall, as I sit behind George Washington's desk, alongside new Americans who came to this country, I cannot see all of America. But like so many who came before, I can see New York City.
He is sitting at George Washington's desk. I want you to really absorb that visual. The man who spent years calling America an arena of supremacy, who cannot bring himself to support Israel as a Jewish state, who called a pro-Israel lobbying group dark money monsters, is sitting at the desk of a man who led the Continental Army to victory against the British Empire. George Washington did not have a lot of opinions about AIPAC, but I'm fairly confident that if you told him the man sitting at his desk was going to mourn a Hamas sniper on international television, he would have some thoughts. This is the geopolitical equivalent of borrowing someone's car, crashing it into a wall, and then giving a speech from the driver's seat about how the car was always flawed to begin with.
There is a term so often used to describe our nation and those who have shaped it: American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism, the conventional wisdom tells us, makes our freedom a little more free, is how we dug the Erie Canal and irrigated the West, is why children in faraway lands grow up dreaming of one day moving here. And yet the irony is that the story of America has so often been written by those who were told by others with power and influence and wealth that they were anything but exceptional. For generation after generation, we have been told that when the world has sent its people to our shores, it has not sent its best.
Now here's where it gets interesting. He is redefining American exceptionalism. He does not want you to think it means America is great. He wants you to think it means America is a place where the oppressed can fight back against the powerful, which is a fine sentiment. Genuinely, I have no problem with that. The problem is who he thinks the oppressed are. In Mamdani's world, the oppressed are the people who want to dismantle the Jewish state. The oppressed are the people who chant, "We support Hamas" in Queens. The oppressed are the undocumented immigrants who should never have to show papers to anyone for any reason. The powerful, the ones he is fighting, are the people who think Israel has a right to exist and that ICE agents are allowed to enforce immigration law. That is the version of the American story. The good guys and the bad guys. And somehow, in that version, the only democracy in the Middle East is always the villain.
Bombs and bailouts, when we sell our elections to the highest bidder.
Bombs and bailouts. That is a very carefully chosen phrase because bombs is doing a lot of work in that sentence. And everyone in his audience knows exactly which bombs he's talking about. He's not talking about the bombs America dropped on Nazi Germany. He's not talking about the bombs that ended the war in the Pacific. He is talking about the military aid to Israel. He said this on the 4th of July at George Washington's desk in a country that was literally founded by people who used bombs, well, muskets, but the principle holds, to fight for their freedom. The irony of a man who benefits from the American military power, who lives in a city protected by the most powerful military in human history, complaining about bombs on Independence Day, is so thick you could spread it on toast. But then he pivots immediately to, we sell our elections to the highest bidder. That is the AIPAC line. That is the dark money monsters line dressed up in a tuxedo for a holiday speech. He could not even get through the 4th of July without working on his favorite anti-Semitic trope. He is nothing if not consistent. Now, while Mamdani was delivering his 13-minute lecture on American failure from behind George Washington's desk, let me tell you what was happening in Jerusalem. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, a man currently fighting a war on multiple fronts, a man who just watched his country conduct a joint military operation with the United States against Iran, released a 4th of July message to the American people. He did not complain about bombs. He did not call anyone small or weak.
We know that freedom is never cheap. It must be continually purchased. It must be continually defended. America has been the greatest force for liberty the modern world has known. Israel is proud to stand beside her. Israel is proud to stand beside all of you. Because our alliance is built not only on shared interest, it's built on shared values. Today, those values are under attack. The tyrants we face chant, death to America, death to Israel. They think freedom is weak. They think democracies are weak. They're wrong about our two democracies. Because when America and Israel stand together, freedom stands stronger. Together we defend freedom. Together we defend our common civilization.
Let me be very clear about what just happened. The leader of a foreign country, a country that has been under siege since October 7, 2023, is more enthusiastically pro-American on the 4th of July than the mayor of New York City. Netanyahu is fighting for his country's survival, and he still finds time to honor America's birthday with genuine warmth. Mamdani is sitting in the safest, most powerful city on earth, and he uses the occasion to complain why the powerful are small and weak. One of these men understands what America means. The other one is sitting at Washington's desk.
How small they are, how weak, how unoriginal. At every moment in our past, those who led through exclusion and isolation have tried to win power and enrich themselves by turning us against one another. Division is the oldest trick in politics and the cheapest. But time and again, including 250 years ago, those forces of division have been vanquished by the forces of progress.
Division is the oldest trick in politics and the cheapest. He said that out loud with a straight face. The man who just spent 5 minutes dividing America into the powerful oppressors and the virtuous oppressed is telling us that division is the cheapest trick in politics. I want to be charitable here. I genuinely want to find a reading of this where it is not completely self-unaware. No, there is no charitable reading of this. He is describing himself. He is describing his entire political career. He built his mayoral campaign on the division between pro-Israel and anti-Israel New Yorkers. He backed candidates who ran explicitly on opposition to the Jewish state. He called AIPAC dark money monsters at a campaign rally in Brooklyn. He is the division. He is the trick. He is doing it while quoting Thomas Paine, which makes it classier, but does not change what it is. Let us talk about what is actually happening in New York City. While Mamdani gives speeches about the powerful and the weak, anti-Semitic hate crimes in New York City have surged. Jewish New Yorkers are a minority of the city's population, but a majority of hate crime victims. The Israeli Consul General in New York issued a direct warning. Mamdani's inflammatory rhetoric will end in violent acts against Jewish and Israeli communities. And what does the mayor do? He mourns a Hamas sniper on television. He calls AIPAC monsters. He tells a national audience that he cannot support Israel as a Jewish state. He backs congressional candidates who ran on platforms of cutting military aid to Israel and supporting Palestinian resistance. And then he gives a speech about how division is the cheapest trick in politics. The mask is not slipping. The mask is completely off. They threw it on the ground and stomped on it. This is the part I teased at the beginning. This is the one that should disqualify him from ever being taken seriously again. A few weeks ago, the Israeli Defense Forces eliminated a man named Ahmed Wisha in Gaza. Mamdani immediately rushed to the cameras. He mourned Wishak publicly. He presented him as an innocent Al Jazeera journalist, a brave truth teller, a victim of Israeli aggression. He used Wishak's death as evidence that Israel is committing war crimes. There's one small problem. Ahmed Wisha was a Hamas sniper. Not according to Israel alone. Hamas itself publicly claimed him as one of their fighters. They released the photos. They released the statements. Hamas said, yes, he was ours. He was a combatant. The mayor of New York City publicly mourned a Hamas terrorist on international television. He did not apologize. He did not correct the record. He moved on to the next grievance because in his worldview, the story does not change based on the facts. Israel is always the aggressor. The people Israel kills are always innocent. The evidence does not matter. The Hamas press release confirming their fighter's identity does not matter. The narrative is fixed. This is the man who sat at George Washington's desk and told us that division is the cheapest trick in politics. George Washington crossed the Delaware in a blizzard to fight for freedom. Zoran Mamdani crossed the press conference room to mourn a terrorist. The contrast is complete. Netanyahu called America the greatest force for liberty the modern world has known. Mamdani called its defenders small and weak, and saved his tears for the people trying to destroy it. That is it for today. The mayor of New York City gave a 4th of July speech about how terrible the powerful are from behind the desk of the most powerful American who ever lived, and then spent the rest of the month mourning Hamas fighters and calling pro-Israel lobbyists monsters. Let me know in the comments, do you think he will ever sit at that desk and say the words, Israel has the right to exist as a Jewish state? I will see you next time.